When most people think of Florida, a few things usually come to mind: beaches, theme parks, maybe an alligator or two lurking in a swamp. But here's the thing, Florida can be a master of disguise. Scattered around the state are places that will make you swear you've somehow wandered into Colorado, Costa Rica, or maybe even the African savanna. So today we're counting down 10 places that don't look like Florida at all. Let's just say if you dropped someone in here blindfolded, they might need Google Maps to convince themselves they were still in the Sunshine State. Blowing Rocks Preserve in Jupiter Island. If you think Florida's beaches are nothing but soft sand and seashells, just wait until you see Blowing Rocks Preserve. Instead of sugar sand, you'll get jagged limestone cliffs where waves crash through holes and shoot the water sky high. On a stormy day, it's like nature's own fountain show, only way cooler than anything on the Vegas Strip. This is the longest stretch of Anastasia limestone shoreline in the entire United States. The rocky terrain makes it feel a bit more like California's Big Sur or Portugal's rugged coast than a Florida beach. Visit at high tide when the waves are strongest and you'll see why they call this place Blowing Rocks. Just make sure you wear shoes, the rocks are really sharp and they will shred your flip-flops faster than a tourist can ask, "Is it safe to swim here?" Paynes Prairie, Gainesville. You don't expect to find bison in Florida, but that's exactly what you'll see at Paynes Prairie. This massive grassland is home to wild bison and horses roaming free, a sight that feels more like North Dakota than the land of Mickey Mouse and Margaritaville. With wide open skies, tall grasses swaying in the breeze, this is Florida's answer to the Great Plains. And it's one of the most biodiverse places in the entire state. You come here sometime between late fall and early spring, and it's easy to forget you're even in Florida at all. Here's a fun fact, Paynes Prairie was once a giant lake until a sinkhole drained it all in the 1700s. Now it's a vast ecosystem that looks nothing like palm-lined beaches, and if you climb the 50-foot observation tower, you can see miles of open prairie, and if you're lucky, you'll see the bison herd in the distance. Sunrise or sunset is one of the best times to visit here when the sky turns gold and the wildlife comes alive. And if you go to the north entrance of the park, the Lachua Trail is a boardwalk over some swamps and wetlands that do look a lot more like the Florida you're used to. And it's also one of the most gator-packed places you'll ever see outside of Gatorland. The Devil's Millhopper in Gainesville. Imagine climbing down into a giant sinkhole and finding a hidden rainforest at the bottom. That's what Devil's Millhopper is. This 120-foot deep geological wonder has trickling waterfalls, lush ferns, and mossy cliffs that will make you feel like you've stumbled into Costa Rica. And the deeper you go, the cooler and wetter the air feels. And that's not just me saying that. Devil's Millhopper has what geologists refer to as a microclimate. Stepping down in there is like stepping into another world. Scientists down here have found shark's teeth, seashells, and even extinct animal fossils down here, proving that Florida used to be a very different place millions of years ago. The name Devil's Millhopper comes from the old belief that this sinkhole was a gateway to the underworld. But don't worry, the only thing you'll find down there are ferns and salamanders. No demons that I could find. But just remember, what goes down must come back up. Those wooden stairs will definitely test your cardio. Real quick, my goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers, and I am just over halfway there. And it's your support that's going to get me there. If you enjoy videos about Florida's hidden gems, state parks, and even some of the theme parks, hit that like and subscribe button. It sincerely means a lot to me. I sincerely appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's keep going. Torreya State Park in the Panhandle. Now this is sort of ironically nicknamed the Mountains of Florida, and I'm using mountains in air quotes here, but Torreya State Park will trick you into thinking you're somewhere in Appalachia. With steep bluffs, deep ravines, and hardwood forests that actually change colors in the fall. It feels a little bit more like Tennessee than Tallahassee around here. Hikers love the trails here because you can actually get a little bit of elevation. Yeah, elevation in Florida. Who would have thunk it? That's a rarity in a state where the highest point is basically just an anthill with a sign on it. The park is named after the Torreya tree, one of the rarest conifers in the world, and it only grows along this stretch of the Apalachicola River. Sadly, it's also critically endangered. Still, this park is a stunner in every season, especially in late November when you can actually catch autumn leaves in Florida. Falling Waters State Park in Chipley. Florida has a lot of water surrounding it and in it. A lot of lakes around here, but not a lot of waterfalls. Unless you're counting water parks and mini golf courses, we do have lots of those waterfalls. And that's what makes Falling Waters pretty surprising. A 73-foot waterfall plunges straight down into a giant sinkhole, disappearing underground into mysterious caverns. It's the tallest waterfall in Florida, which isn't really saying much admittedly, but it's also one of the quirkiest. The water literally vanishes into the earth like it fell into another dimension. Archaeologists here have found evidence that Native Americans once used this site, and later it powered a Civil War-era grist mill. But today it's just a beautiful and weird natural feature that looks like something you'll find in Kentucky or the Carolinas. If you can, try to visit after a heavy rain. The falls here can slow to just a trickle when the weather has been dry, which can make for a slightly disappointing hike if you get out here expecting Niagara. And don't come expecting Niagara, it's not that kind of waterfall. Big Shoals State Park in White Springs. Whitewater Rapids in Florida? Yeah, that's a thing, and Big Shoals delivers. These are the only Class 3 rapids in the entire state, formed when the Suwannee River rushes over limestone ledges. Now, Hillsborough River State Park near Tampa has some smaller Class 2 rapids, which are pretty cool to see and definitely are not something you're used to seeing in Florida, but Big Shoals is the only place in Florida where the water really churns enough to earn that Class 3 rating. Standing on the bluff and watching the rapids crash right here is enough to make you think you've been dropped into the Smoky Mountains. And the Suwannee River itself is a piece of music history. It's the river in Stephen Foster's famous song, Old Folks at Home, which is also the Florida State song. Kayakers and rafters sometimes take on the rapids here, though it's not exactly for beginners. I wouldn't just take any old kayak through here. And if you stay dry, the hiking trails give you plenty of safe overlooks to enjoy the whitewater spectacle. Shark Valley in the Everglades. Shark Valley is part of Everglades National Park, and while that is very Florida, it doesn't look like the Florida people picture. From the observation tower here, all you'll see is endless sawgrass stretching to the horizon, and it looks more like the African Serengeti than a swamp. You half expect to see lions chasing zebras instead of herons chasing fish up here. Especially at sunset when the entire area is bathed in a warm orange glow. The 15-mile loop road here is pretty famous for close encounters with wildlife, and by close I mean alligators can literally sunbathe on the trail. Visitors can bike the entire loop or take the tram tour, but the real highlight is climbing the observation tower for those panoramic views. Make sure you bring some water though, it is really hot, really sunny, the Florida sun is brutal, and the gators don't like to share. Amelia Island Historic District in Fernandina Beach. When a lot of people think of Florida architecture, they're probably going to imagine pastel condos and strip malls, maybe some Art Deco or a Key West style house with chickens wandering around the porch. But head to Amelia Island on Florida's northeast coast and suddenly you're walking cobblestone streets lined with Victorian mansions and brick storefronts. The historic district here feels a lot more like Charleston or Savannah than anything you'd expect in Florida. Amelia Island is nicknamed the Isle of 8 Flags because it's the only place in the entire US that has been ruled by 8 different nations, including Spain, France, Mexico, and once even a rogue pirate republic owned this area. Today, the 50-block historic district is a time capsule of the 1800s, with lots of little local businesses, restaurants, and even some old-time saloons. You definitely expect to hear the clip-clopping of horses while you're exploring the streets around here. And try to visit in early May during the Isle of 8 Flags Shrimp Festival. Not only is it delicious, but it's also one of Florida's quirkiest local celebrations. Dry Tortugas National Park at the end of the Florida Keys. So 70 miles west of Key West lies Dry Tortugas, a place that feels like you left the US entirely. At the center is Fort Jefferson, a massive 1800s brick fortress surrounded by turquoise waters that look a lot more like the Bahamas. It's remote, beautiful, and absolutely surreal. The fort once served as a prison during the Civil War, and today it's a snorkeling and diving paradise. And the only way to get out here is by seaplane or a ferry from Key West, which makes this adventure even more special. Between the coral reefs, the history, and the sheer "how is this Florida" vibes, Dry Tortugas is one of the most unforgettable, unique places in the entire state. It's also one of the least visited national parks in the country, because you can't exactly drive out here, but that's what makes it even better. It takes real effort and a little bit of money to get here, which keeps the crowds down. And finally, what I think is one of the more unique places in the state, Florida Cavern State Park in Mariana. Yeah, Florida has caves, real caves with stalactites, stalagmites, and flowstone formations that look like melted candles. At Florida Cavern State Park, you can take guided tours through underground passageways that feel a lot more like Kentucky's Mammoth Cave than Florida. And at a constant 65 degrees, it's also one of the few places in Florida where you might even need a sweater in the middle of the summer. These caverns were formed millions of years ago from ancient marine deposits, and the park itself was developed in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's one of the few spots in Florida where you can go from palm trees and humidity outside to dark, cool caves underground. This is a really interesting place and well worth the visit. I loved it when I visited this place. And it's only a few miles off of I-10 in the middle of the Panhandle, so it is a pretty easy stop if you're road tripping anyway through that part of Florida. So there you have it, Florida's ultimate costume party. From bison plains to Caribbean forts, from waterfalls to caves, this state can look a lot more diverse than it gets credit for. Next time someone tells you Florida is nothing but beaches and swamps, send them this video, even though, they're not exactly wrong. But which of these spots surprised you the most? Have you visited any of these, or do you know another place that doesn't feel like Florida? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss more hidden sides of the Sunshine State, from the theme parks to the state parks. I'll see you in the next one. Please stay safe out there, and I'll see you around the Sunshine State.